530-ish, which you should have a good deal of 528 items. Most of them should be upgraded, um, which I believe you're right about there. You're probably going to want to start the gear for or forge for hit expertise to cap. Cap is 7.50. You can be a little bit under it and not notice a big difference, but it's recommended to be at cap. Moving on from there, your second stat is going to be dodge, which your soft cap for dodge, I believe, is 11%. Um, your next stat from there is going to be parry, and if you take a look real quick, my dodge and my parry are relatively close. Stat amount wise, it's only 10 points off. So you're better off to forge parry because you have more benefit per stat per point for parry than you do stat per point for dodge. Your next stat is going to be mastery. Obviously, that's the primary aspect of being a DK tank is absorbing the hits that you take. Um, where was I? The most beneficial things that you're probably going to be able to do are healing yourself and absorbing an amount. Um, Sorry, I'm losing track of. I've done this video so many times. For some reason it's not working, but now it is. Awesome. Okay. Uh, the two trinkets that you're going to want to seek out the most are going to be the Vial of Living Corruption and the Rook's Lucky Talisman. Those two work the best. They give you the most stamina, giving you the most amount of blood shield that you could possibly get. Also, um, Vampiric Blood Glyph gives you quite a bit of additional incoming healing, 40%, 10 seconds. It's pretty decent. You pop that with Rook's Unlucky Talisman, your incoming damage that you take is reduced greatly, magic wise, elemental wise, and your amount of damage that you can be healed, or the amount of healing that you can receive, is going to be increased pretty significantly when you mix those two trinkets together, or trinkets together, and talent together. They really synergize very well. Having said that, when you do like a Vampiric Blood, you raise your dead ally, and you pop Death Pack, you can do a pretty good amount of self-healing just right there at Death Pack with Rune Tap. Um, that for me is almost muscle memory. I use that so much. It, it's one of those things that if you are really low, um, I forget what it is, like 35% or 30 or 25%, 20%, something like that, 15% maybe, your rune tap becomes free. %, yeah. Also, anti-magic shell is one of those things that should be used very frequently. Finding out what you can, what you can't absorb with anti-magic shell is actually going to be one of those things that's very important, especially when you come to later tiers. Flex, Wing 2, Wing 3, Wing 4. It's going to be one of those things that's very beneficial, and especially for later content. It works very well on Shell of Pride, works very well on Immersius, Fallen Protectors, it works very well. There's world bosses that it works very well with. A lot of other things. Malarok, it works very well with just about everything that Malarok throws out. Um, Having said that, I've glyphed it pretty heavily. Having said that, moving along, I tend to keep the Vial of Living Corruption in my main trinket box, and I barely ever swap it out. The only one that I really ever swap out is Rooks for maybe the other Juggernaut's Focusing Crystal. Um, Bumps my mastery up pretty significantly, 10%. Um, Gives me a little boost, gives me a percentage, yeah, 1% of dodge. Not a great amount for that, but dodge isn't really going to be the most important thing. Parry is going to be the most important thing. Your mastery is going to be your most important thing. Um, this trinket will help even out the spikes in damage that you're going to take if you're tanking multiple mobs. In gates where you meet Galcarachus, there are mobs immediately to the left that you can pull, and sometimes an extra pack can come in, and you can be tanking upwards of 12 to 15 guys at one time. I have done this numerous times where other tanks have died. I have lived just because of that trinket and a combination of other things, which I'll get into in a little bit. Um, Great trinket if you really need to bump your mastery up even more for a group of guys where you're going to be tanking multiple ads, even more so, like where you're at Dark Shamans and you're guaranteed to almost have some pug pull 30 guys or the entire Dark Shamans area of Pats. Those two trinkets right there are going to almost probably save your life. Along with um, some add-ons that I would definitely recommend. The first add-on that I recommend is Blood Shield Tracker, which tracks everything from your blood shield bar to an estimated heal, which you can set. That's not it. I want to do Blood Shield Bar. Well, that's Mode Death Strike, yeah. And it just gives you so many things. There it is, estimated bar value. That's the one you want to configure for. Abbreviate it just because it makes it easier to read. I'll show you here. Estimated heal. Blood Strike. So right now, if I was a Death Strike, I'd heal for 184. Now it's 207. Now it's 230, and that's going to be my maximum amount that I could probably heal post-damage. What I'm doing here is being able to read the amount that I can heal, and I'm tracking my Scent of Bloods. So your Scent of Blood increases by 20% per stack for how much you're going to heal. So there's a 230 heal. And it tracks, it gives you a time in seconds of how long that blood shield's going to last. 1, 0, and you can refresh. And you can usually get 3 stacks of Scent of Blood before. Okay, it's 2, it looks like. There's 3. So that's almost all of my health right there. Almost a full shield. That's full shield right there. 890. My total amount of my health I'm shielded for. So what I'm doing here is I'm using Blood Shield Tracker along with another add-on called Need to Know. Need to Know, where is it? There it is. Need to Know is a add-on that allows you to create multiple groups that aren't showing up right now. Oh, wait, there we go. And you can add however many bars of tracks you want to add. And that comes in handy when you want to track debuffs, or can come in handy when you want to track debuffs for content for your target of your target. I'll show you here. You can set it up and be able to choose, say, debuff 1. Units allowed. Target of, you can do target of target. And if your target's target is is the off tank, then that makes it that much easier. You can have something right there that's just kind of wherever you want to put it at. Easy indicator so you don't have to take your eyes up or off or move around a whole lot or be distracted by. It's one of those things that I'm going to be getting into and configuring up a little bit later when I start to get into the later levels of Flex, um, especially if I continue to tank with shields or cheese. Um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the uh, amount of threat, which there's a great trick to increase the amount of threat that you can pull. And what it is basically just like that. Dancing Rune Weapon, D&D, Remorseless Winter. Uh, if you have a bunch of red runes or death runes, Heart Strike, Heart Strike, Heart Strike, and keep blood boiling as it pops up. That pretty much just doubles every attack that you do. It's a great way to gen threat, especially in heavy mob situations. Um, so what didn't I cover? I believe I covered anti-magic shell, covered the trinkets, covered the stats, covered the add-ons. With my current setup, it's very easy for me to embarrass healers because I will be healing myself more than they will actually be healing the entire raid for. Uh, I usually take far less damage than other tanks, just from parry, keeping Dancing Rune Weapon up and active, using Anti-Magic Shell, keeping Bone Shield up, and being very adamant in my tracking of my estimated heal, just so I'm constantly absorbing. I take far less damage than most tanks. Let's see, that's Anti-Magic Shell right there, my total absorb amount right there. My Bone Wall charges every 10, gives you another 1. Scent of Blood, so it's all right there. Ice HUD's kind of framing it. The other thing that I want to talk about is Yuri's rune display, which is this little smiley face that I have right here that helps bring my runes down to where I'm not having to look up wondering what runes I have and what runes I don't have. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is runic power management, which you want to be able to manage your runic power as much as you possibly can. You don't want to keep, just going and going and not dump. You don't want to be full or keep yourself full. You want to constantly be fluxing. You don't want it to keep stacking. At the same time, you also don't want to just keep on hearts, rune striking, and not proccing your blood tap. If you're maxed out on your blood taps, it's just a complete waste. So you got to manage those things. So that's what really centers it all, brings it all into view. So you're not looking up to the left or off to the right, or what have you. You're able to see it without really thinking about where it's at. Um, the other thing that I do is with Xpearl is I have my target of target on, so that shows me and will highlight debuffs, and I kind of have it brought down a little bit. So that kind of frames my target of target, and that helps a lot when I'm tanking and I have another tank that taunts off or has a stacking debuff that's occurring that I need to be mindful of. Um, what else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Um, Talked about death packing. Talked about rune tapping. Um, the other last thing, well, one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is as soon as you possibly can, start working on getting your cloak. It's going to be one of those quest lines that's long, almost arduous, and painstaking, but once you get it, it is so worth it. Um, I got at least 1,002 stamina and about 500 strength out of it, as well as an additional, I don't even know how much parry and mastery and expertise out of it, as well as stamina, and just the ability to have a buff that occurs when I'm about to die. It's like having a second purgatory. Um, great, great cloak to have. Um, it almost makes me want to spec out of purgatory and go for one of those two. But then again, it's a passive. It's always going to be there. It's not something else that I have to manage. So I'm kind of against it at the same time. I think that's pretty much it. Um, I would gem 502 items. I wouldn't really worry about enchanting 502 items unless you can find it cheap. Your 528 items, I would gem and enchant um, on up. Um, if you need help with that, ask the guild. There's always going to be somebody in guild that's going to be able to help. Well, most always. It's very rare that there's not somebody in the guild that's willing to not help or not willing to help. If in doubt, you can always ask Unchanged or Cheese Stick. I'm sure they can work something out with one of the other guild members if they can't get you a gem or an enchant or some buff food or something else that you need. Speaking of, the one thing that really works for me very well is the spring rolls. 450 stamina. I got other things in here too. That's a 415 actually. Great Banquet. Um, if that's something that you're into, it really helps if you have that high cooking level and you can farm those mats and other stuff. I'm pretty sure that's it. You said you already had that insanity item. Crystal of Insanity. Great item to have. If you want a little macro that helps, I'll just flip through mine really quickly. You can pause the screen if you want to. most of these is I add deadly boss mods with it, and I create a timer. Um, and that just lets me know that it's active for so long, and then it's on cooldown. And it stays up there if it's a long cooldown. And then I could get a little pop with Mike scrolling battle text, which is that, and the heals over here, so damage heals, both scrolling down. Um, I use my E key for a taunt, which gives a little indicator. And shifting is a taunt off. Controlling is a swap. It's the need to know. It's my Ray's ally. That's if somebody dies and I have enough runic power, I can call it out that I just raised somebody. It's like a B-res. And that's my spec changes. That's my gear management. And for some reason, Horn of Winter doesn't work with that. Probably because it's on cooldown when I swap. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And that's all she wrote. Hope this finds you good. Have a good one, bud.